I've been reborn right back to the day Su Qingying's father threw a 10 million yuan check right in my face. In my past life, I tore that check to pieces. But all I got in return was a disdainful smirk from him, and Su Qingying's increasingly cold glare. For the next 10 years, I lived as lowly as dust, desperately chasing after her shadow. In the end, during a business banquet, just to keep her safe, I was taken out by a rival in a dark alley. Right before I faded away, the last thing etched into my eyes was her completely emotionless face. If I were nothing but a passing stranger, this time, I refused to be the ultimate simp who loses everything. So, I calmly reached out and took the check. I looked up at Su Jianguo, flashing an incredibly bright smile, even showing a hint of gratitude.
Thank you, uncle.
My voice wasn't loud, but it echoed like a thunderclap in this luxurious private room. All the harsh words Su Jianguo had prepared got stuck in his throat. The imposing look on his face instantly morphed into pure shock. He probably imagined 100 ways I would refuse, but he never expected me to smile and thank him. Beside him, Zhao Hui's mocking grin instantly froze, like a duck getting choked. As for Su Qingying, the icy goddess, who was always so high and mighty, never showing a single emotion, for the first time, a crack appeared on her eternally frozen face. Her pupils slightly contracted, her red lips parted, yet she couldn't make a single sound. I carefully folded the check and slipped it into the pocket of my faded jeans. Then I stood up and bowed to Su Jianguo. Rest assured, uncle, from today onward, I will absolutely never bother Miss Su Qingying again. With that, I turned to Su Qingying. Sorry for bothering you these past 3 years. I truly apologize. I wish you a bright future and smooth sailing ahead. Su Qingying's body gave a barely noticeable tremble. She finally looked me straight in the eye, and in those beautiful eyes, the ice was replaced by absolute astonishment. Without waiting for her to speak, I turned to leave. Chen An, I thought you actually had some backbone, but you're just a spineless gold digger. 10 years of feelings, sold out for 10 million yuan. You really are cheap. My footsteps halted. In my past life, this exact sentence made me so furious that I lost control and lunged at him, only to get beaten half to death by the bodyguards, leaving in a pathetic state. But right now, I just calmly turned to look at him. There was no anger in my eyes, only a faint sense of pity. You must be joking, second young master. First, it wasn't 10 years. It was 3. Second, it wasn't mutual feelings. It was just me being a clingy stalker. Third, this isn't a sellout. It's Chairman Su, giving me fair compensation for my efforts over the past 3 years. After all, playing the role of the ultimate simp takes a lot of time and energy. This 10 million is neither too much nor too little, it's just reasonable. I pulled open the heavy wooden door of the private room and walked out without looking back, leaving behind a dead silence. Stepping out of the hotel, the lingering sunlight stung my eyes. I pulled out the check, and that string of numbers was so real it made me want to cry. To hell with love, to hell with dignity. I, Chen An, have been given a second chance at life, and this time, I don't love anyone. I only love money. I didn't immediately go to the bank to cash the check. An old fox, like Su Jianguo, might have played some tricks with it, like putting a hold on it. Or maybe it was just a bounce check, waiting to make a fool out of me. You miscalculated, Su Jianguo. I hailed a cab back to my rental room in the slums. The damp, gloomy room was less than 10 square meters. The air filled with a mix of instant noodles and mold. This was the place where, in my past life, just to be a little closer to Su Qingying's university, I gritted my teeth and lived for 3 whole years. I opened my beat-up 5-year-old laptop, the screen lagging, taking forever to light up. I wasn't in a rush to type. I just leaned back. The chair started creaking. Being reborn, what's my biggest advantage? Information. The economic trends of the next 10 years. Which stocks will skyrocket, which industries will rise. I know it all. I opened the stock trading app and skillfully typed in the ticker, Tengfei Tech. I remember it clearly. Just tomorrow, this tiny, unnoticed company will announce a new chip technology patent, and its stock price will shoot from 5 yuan straight up to 200 yuan. I picked up my phone and dialed Su Qingying's number. The stuff you left at my place. I've packed it all up and left it by the door. You can send someone to pick it up anytime. Also, I'm changing my number, so from now on, there's no need to contact me. Without waiting for her reply, I hung up. I took out the SIM card, snapped it in half, and tossed it in the trash. The world was finally peaceful. Early the next morning, I went straight to the bank, unexpectedly. Cashing the check went incredibly smoothly. It wasn't until my phone pinged with a notification, showing a long string of zeros added to my account, that I truly believed my life was really about to restart. Without hesitation, I took the entire 9.9 million yuan and transferred it all into my brokerage account. I went all in on Tengfei Tech. When I walked out of the stock exchange, my whole body suddenly felt so light. Now, all I had to do was wait. I didn't go back to that moldy rental room. Instead, I went to the best hotel in the city center. and booked an executive suite. Soaking in the bathtub, sipping chilled champagne. Looking out at the bustling city through the window, I suddenly felt a bit dazed. In my past life, I could only stand outside this kind of hotel, looking up at the lights on the top floor, imagining Su Qingying attending some kind of
extravagant banquet up there.
Just as my thoughts were drifting, ding, my phone chimed. A text from an unknown number. It's Su Qingying.
Chen An, where are you?
I gave you those things and you just threw them away. Looks like she found my new number. She gave me things. They were just trinkets she didn't want anymore. A pen, a notebook. Every time she gave me something, it felt like giving alms to a beggar. I was so stupid back then, treating them like treasures. I didn't reply. Just block the number right away. Then, I called room service. Hello! Please send up 2 professional masseuses. In this life, I'm going to treat myself right. For the next week, I lived the lazy, carefree days I had always dreamed of.
Waking up naturally every day.
Having breakfast at the top-floor restaurant, enjoying an exquisite meal, spending the afternoons killing time, eat the gym or the pool, and at night, experiencing the peak nightlife of Yancheng. I ditched my cheap clothes and jeans and put on a perfectly tailored suit. Clothes make the man, that saying is absolutely true. When I wore that finely crafted suit with a Patek Philippe on my wrist, stepping into any high-end venue, I was greeted only with humble smiles and attentive service. No more judgmental stares or looks of disgust. Money is truly a man's strongest aura. As for Tengfei Tech stock, I was too lazy to even check it. Tonight, I invited 2 hot models for drinks at Yanqing's most exclusive private club,
Yunding Heavenly Palace.
The music was deafening, people were swaying, and the air was thick with the smell of money and hormones. In my past life, I didn't even have the right to step foot in here. But right now, I was sitting in the best seat, basking in all kinds of attention.
Young Master Annan.
Have another drink. The model beside me cooed, leaning in. I smiled and pinched her cheek. Before I could say a word, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure from the corner of my eye. Su Qingying, why is she here? Beside her was Zhao Hui, along with a few unfamiliar rich kids. Zhao Hui was spitting everywhere, bragging about something.
Su Qingying
Still had that cold expression, completely out of place amidst the noise.
She saw me too.
The moment our eyes met, a flash of shock, a hint of doubt, and disgust crossed her eyes. That's right. Disgust. In her eyes, someone who took her father's money just to come here and fool around was probably no different from trash. Zhao Hui followed her gaze, turned to look, and instantly an exaggerated, mocking grin spread across his face. He pushed through the crowd, striding right toward me. Well, if it isn't the infamous Chen An, the great saint of love himself. Zhao Hui's voice was loud, deliberately drawing everyone's attention.
What?
Brought Uncle Sus 10 million here to blow it all. Feeling like you've reached the peak of your life, the guys behind him burst into laughter, all mocking me for being a massive simp, saying I sold myself out for 10 million and disgraced all men. The 2 models beside me looked embarrassed and tried to stand up. I gently pressed them back down, signaling them to stay put. I raised my glass, slowly swirling the whiskey inside. I didn't even bother looking at Zhao Hui. Young Master Zhao, long time no see. How's the family business? I heard the Zhao Group has a few overseas projects that seem to have run into some trouble. What the hell are you babbling about? I took a sip of my drink. The Seaport project in Southeast Asia got shelved due to local policy changes, didn't it? And the chip agency rights in Europe. Didn't Zhongxi Capital snatch that right out from under you? Those 2 fiascos must have cost you at least 500 million, right? All this information was something I saw on the financial news in my past life. Hearing this, Zhao Hui's forehead instantly broke out in a cold sweat. These were all internal company secrets. Aside from the board of directors, absolutely no one knew. How could this loser know? You investigated me? I set my glass down and finally looked him straight in the eye. Young Master Zhao, you flatter yourself. You're not worth my time. I stood up, half a head taller than him, looking down at him with eyes full of contempt.
Watch your mouth.
Stop acting like a rabid dog biting everyone you see. The music around us seemed to gradually fade away. Everyone realized the atmosphere was off. Overwhelmed by my aura, Zhao Hui stood there with his mouth agape, unable to squeeze out a single word. His face turned pale, then flush red, looking incredibly ugly. I ignored him, pulled a stack of cash from my wallet, and slapped it on the table. Thanks for your time, girls. Catch a cab home. With that, I adjusted my suit collar and walked right past Zhao Hui. As I passed by Su Qingying, my footsteps paused. She looked at me, the shock in her eyes, even deeper than back in the private room. She probably couldn't wrap her head around how, just a few days ago, the dirt-poor loser who was as lowly as dust before her had suddenly become so unfamiliar and sharp. I smirked at her, revealing a meaningful smile. Classmate Su, you should really improve your judge of character. With that, I turned and left, leaving behind a resolute silhouette and a crowd with their jaws dropped. It's not that she was out of my league, it's just that now, I couldn't even be bothered to look up at her. Leaving the club, I didn't go back to the hotel but drove straight to the airport. This place, Yunqing, held too much of my past life's pain. Now that I've secured my first pot of gold, it's time to move somewhere else and start a new life. The plane took off at dawn, heading to Modu, a place filled with gold and opportunities, a massive international metropolis. On the plane, I turned off my phone, leaned back in my first-class seat, and comfortably drifted off to sleep. By the time I opened my eyes again, the plane had landed at Pudong International Airport. Stepping out of the airport, breathing in the adventurous air of Modu, I felt like a completely reborn warrior. I wasn't in a rush to buy a house. Instead, I went to the most luxurious serviced apartment by the Huangpu River, Tangchen Yipan, and signed a long-term lease. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, with a 360-degree panoramic view, looking down at the dazzling night view of the Bund, I knew this was my true stage. The next day, right as the market opened, I got a call from my stockbroker. His voice was trembling with excitement. Mr.
Chen.
It's up. Tangfei Tech hit the daily limit. I just gave a nonchalant Hold on to it. Don't sell until it hits 150 yuan. Hanging up. I started planning my next move. Relying solely on stocks is just hot money. The foundation isn't solid. I need to build my own business empire based on my memories from my past life. I know that in the coming years, online healthcare, new energy vehicles, and artificial intelligence, AI, will be the three massive trends. I spent a week drafting a detailed business plan. I wanted to establish an investment firm dedicated to hunting down these high-potential startups. A month later, Tangfei Tech's stock price, just as I predicted, skyrocketed crazily to 150 yuan. The capital in my account went from the initial 9.9 million yuan to a number that made even me click my tongue. 300 million yuan. Without hesitation, I sold it all. Money is only safe when it's in your pocket. With this startup capital, my Wangchao Capital was officially established in Modu. The office was located on the top floor of the Lujiazui World Financial Center, right across the river from the Oriental Pearl Tower. I started recruiting, using salaries far above the market rate to poach from major investment banks the best analysts and traders. At first, those elites looked down on me, a wet behind the ears kid barely in his 20s. But after I accurately predicted 3 US stock market crashes and led them to short the market, making $50 million in a single day, they all shut up. The way they looked at me shifted from doubt to awe, and finally into fanatical worship. In their eyes, I wasn't just a boss, I was a god. My life grew increasingly busy, with endless meetings every day, piles of reports to read, and countless people to meet. I gradually forgot about Yunqing, forgot about Su Qingying, and forgot about that dark past, until one day, my secretary handed me an invitation. Next week at the Shenqing Exhibition Center, there's an international business
Summit.
This is the invitation from the organizers. I took it and skimmed through it. When my eyes landed on the list of co-organizers, my fingers paused. The Su Group. Talk about a lingering ghost. Decline it for me. My secretary looked a bit troubled. This summit is highly prestigious. Nearly half of the Global 500 will be there. Moreover, Mr. Lee from the organizing committee specifically requested your attendance. Mr.
Lee.
The son of a Hong Kong billionaire and the host of this
Summit.
I frowned.
This guy?
I had only seen him on TV in my past life. Yet now he was specifically asking to meet me. It seems Wangchao Capital's reputation in Modu has spread far and wide. Then let's make a trip. I also wanted to see
What kind of expressions?
the Su family would have when we met again. Besides, I had prepared a big gift for them. A week later, I boarded the plane as scheduled and headed to the venue. After landing, I went straight there. But unexpectedly, as soon as I entered the hall, Zhao Hui aggressively charged toward me.
What the hell did you do?
I stood under the dazzling chandelier, feeling the probing gazes around us. Zhao Hui looked like a red-eyed, desperate gambler, grabbing me tightly by the collar of my suit. His breathing was ragged, his hands trembling violently. Just moments ago, he must have received the news that the seaport project of the Zhao Group had been completely shut down. Chen An.
What the hell did you do?
I looked down, eat his trembling hands. Half a month ago, he was still a high and mighty rich kid, but now in my eyes, he was nothing but a dancing clown. I wasn't angry, just perfectly calm, seeing right through it all. Young Master Zhao, this suit is very expensive.
Right now,
You probably can't afford to pay for it. I reached up, grabbed his wrist, and gave it a hard twist. He screamed in pain. With a grunt, he let go pathetically. With a grunt, he let go pathetically. I calmly straightened my crumpled collar. This feeling of having everything under control, compared to my previous life of groveling for scraps, is so much better. Dynasty Capital. Where did you get the funding? How could you possibly know my family's trump card? I have the 10 million your father gave me to thank for that. It helped me seize the opportunity with Tengfei Tech. Zhao Hui froze where he stood, his face turning deathly pale. He probably never imagined in his wildest dreams that the money his father used to humiliate me would become the first shovel of dirt to bury the Zhao family. Just then, Su Qingying, dressed in a white gown, stepped out from the crowd. Her eyes were filled with shock. Chen An, do you really have to be this? Heartless, I turned my head to look at her. This was the face I had loved desperately for 10
years. But now?
It didn't stir a single emotion in my heart. Miss Su, business is war. When Zhao Hui was crushing me, I didn't see you calling him heartless. Su Qingying opened her mouth, but not a single word came out. I didn't bother with them further. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, I walked toward the VIP seats deep within the banquet hall. Stop barking like a mad dog. The current you isn't even worthy of being my rival. I walked toward the son of the Hong Kong billionaire, Mr. Li, and lightly clinked glasses with him. Zhao Hui slumped to the floor as the surrounding whispers drowned him like a rising tide. Inside the lounge, it was so quiet you could hear the ice cubes hitting the glass. Mr. Li sat across from me, his gaze fixed on me with pure admiration. Our conversation went smoothly. Dynasty Capital will join forces with the Li Group to develop a new energy project. I knew that. With this step, I would have a permanent foothold. Brother Chen, the youth are truly to be feared. The way you swallowed that plot of land from the Zhe house was perfect. I was just going with the flow. Brother Li.
You flatter me.
After seeing Mr. I off, I was preparing to leave when the lounge door was pushed open again. Su Qingying stood at the door. She no longer had that arrogant look from the banquet hall. Her eyes showed a weariness and regret I had never seen before. Chen An, can we talk? Not about business. Just talk. I sat back down on the sofa and poured myself a glass of
Water.
If the me from my past life had heard her use this tone, I probably would have been heartbroken. But now, I only saw it as a waste of time. Miss Su, I have an international meeting this afternoon.
You.
Only have 3 minutes. You never used to call me that?
That 10 million.
My father just wanted to test you. He didn't actually want to drive you away. Hearing this, I almost burst out laughing. A test, throwing 10 million in my face. And watching the guards throw me out, that's what you call a test. If you're here just to talk nonsense, then you can leave. Miss Su, I should thank you for that 10 million. It helped me see clearly that dignity is indeed worth more than love. Su Qingying froze in place, tears welling up in her eyes. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked straight past her. As I brushed past her shoulder, I didn't look back, not even a glance out of the corner of my eye. Miss Su, don't bring up feelings ever again. Between us, there's only business. I walked out of the lounge, the sunlight feeling warm against my skin. I realized that once I let go of that obsession, even the air felt fresher. On the 3rd day after returning to Madu, I received a call from Su Jianguo. His voice was no longer as majestic as it was 2 weeks ago. Instead, it carried an ill-concealed desperation. I sat in my top-floor office at Dynasty Capital, looking down at the view of the Bund, and casually pressed the speakerphone. Chen An.
What exactly do you want? You stole the Zhao family's project.
And now you're maliciously buying up Su Group's retail shares. Uncle Su, you're the one who taught me that there are only interests in business. I feel that. Su Group's shares have great investment.
Value?
Is there a problem with that? From the other end of the line came the sound of glass shattering. Clearly, Chairman Su was livid. In my past life, he treated me like trash, thinking I'd never amount to anything. But now, his lifeline was in my hands. This is revenge. You want to destroy the Su family because of Qingying. You think too highly of Miss Su?
Revenge, no.
I'm just conducting a profitable business deal. I hung up and immediately blacklisted the number. I watched the stock prices flicker on the computer screen, feeling unusually calm. The Su Group had been a hollow shell for years. Their internal audits were already riddled with holes. I only needed to give it a slight push, and this empire would crumble to pieces. President Chen, Miss Su Qingying is downstairs. She says she must see you. I toyed with the Patek Philippe on my wrist, a smirk playing on my lips. 2 weeks ago, I didn't even have the right to step through the Su family's front door. 2 weeks later, the eldest daughter of the Su family had to wait miserably outside my office. Let her wait.
Wait until I finish reviewing this report.
I took a sip of my coffee, the bitterness spreading across my tongue, making me feel more alert than ever. I wanted Su Jianguo to understand exactly what kind of consequences that 10 million he threw had bought him. 2 hours later, Su Qingying finally stepped into my office. She looked much more haggard. Even her exquisite makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She clutched a folder tightly in her hands. The Su Group's final distress signal. Chen An, I'm begging you, stop this. My father's health is failing. If the Su Group collapses, he won't survive it. I spun my chair around to face the woman who was once out of my reach. In my past life, I died in a dark alley, trying to keep her safe. She didn't even bother to attend my funeral. Her pleas now sounded so incredibly ironic. Miss Sue, if you're going to beg someone, you should have the proper attitude. I've seen the restructuring agreement in your hand and am not interested. Then what do you want? As long as the Sue group is saved, I'll agree to any condition. I stood up and walked over to her. She instinctively took a step back, a flash of panic crossing her eyes. I reached out, pointed at the folder in her hand, then snatched it and tossed it into the shredder. I want 51% controlling interest in the Sue group. Furthermore, Su Jianguo must publicly apologize to me.
That's impossible.
My father would never agree to such a condition. I sat back down behind my desk. I lit a cigar. Through the swirling smoke, my gaze became cold and sharp. Then there's nothing left to say. Miss Sue, before the market closes tomorrow, I will complete the final phase of the takeover. By then, the Sue family won't just lose the company. They'll be buried under a mountain of debt.
Su Qingying.
Slumped into a chair, looking completely soul-crushed, she stared at me, as if she were looking at a demon. But I knew. I was only reclaiming the justice I was owed. Get out. Don't waste my time while I'm making money.
Su Qingying.
Staggered out of the office, I watched her retreating figure, the last shred of pity in my heart completely vanishing. This game has only just begun. The Sue family is merely the first stepping stone for my business empire. I sat in my car, watching the crowd of creditors gather below the
SU Group building.
Su Jianguo was likely hiding in his office right now, frantically calling his so-called old brothers. In my past life, these people beat their chests at the dinner table, swearing they'd look out for me, only to be the first ones to scavenge the remains when the Su family fell. Old Lee back then. When your capital was tied up, I was the one who pulled you out. Now I want the retail shares in your hand, and you're talking to me about market price. I listened to the roar coming through the wiretap, a cold smile touching my lips. Su Jianguo still didn't understand. In this circle, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. And I had offered old Lee triple the price, since Chairman Su refuses to apologize. Then I'll let this fire burn a little brighter. I hung up and signaled my secretary, start phase 2 of the plan. In less than 10 minutes, news that the Su group was suspected of falsifying financial reports hit the front pages of every major financial news outlet. This was one of the big gifts I had prepared long ago. Every single data point struck the Su group's fatal weakness. Impossible. These books are only known to the internal high-level management. Chen An.
Where on earth?
Did you get this? I looked at the tightly shut windows on the top floor, feeling as though I could see Su Jianguo's look of utter despair. In my past life, to help him fill these holes, I worked day and night without rest, even resorting to high-interest loans. In this life, this data became his one-way ticket to hell. Uncle Su. This is only the beginning. The stock price plummeted. The Su group's market value evaporated by billions. In less than an hour, I knew Su Jianguo's final psychological defense had crumbled. In this dog-eat-dog world, he no longer had any ground to bargain. At dusk, a heavy rain poured over Madu. I held an umbrella as I stepped out of the building, spotting Su Qingying in the rain immediately. She had no umbrella and was soaked to the bone. That once arrogant spine of hers now seemed slightly hunched. Seeing me appear, she immediately rushed forward, only to be blocked by my bodyguards a few steps away. Chen An, I beg you, please see my father. His heart condition flared up and has been hospitalized. He wants to apologize to you in person. I stopped, looking at her through the curtain of rain. Rainwater streamed down her cheeks, making it impossible to tell if it was tears or rain. In my past life on a rainy night just like this, just to buy a pastry she casually mentioned, I ran across half the city, and all I got in return was one sentence. It's too sweet. Throw it away. If apologies worked, what would we need the cops for? Stop putting on.
You were never like this before.
You used to be heartbroken for hours just because I caught a cold.
Why have you become so cold-blooded?
Because the Chen An who cared about you already died once in that dark alley. The current me only sees profit and loss. I walked past her, heading toward the Rolls-Royce parked by the curb.
Su Qingying
Wailed in despair behind me, but my heart didn't feel a single ripple. This kind of belated deep affection is cheaper than trash in my eyes, as long as you let the Su family go. I'll agree to anything, even marriage.
Marriage? Miss Sue.
Your current net worth isn't even enough to qualify as a receptionist. Eat my dynasty capital. The car door closed, shutting out the wind, the rain, and her crying. I looked through the rearview mirror, watching that white silhouette shrink further and further away, and poured myself a glass of red wine. This round, I won an absolute victory. The Su Group shareholder meeting took place as scheduled. I pushed open the heavy solid wood doors. The originally noisy conference room fell dead silent in an instant. I walked straight to the seat. That symbolized absolute power. That spot used to belong to Su Jianguo, but now it's mine? Mr.
Chen, please take a look.
We've already signed all the transfer agreements. For the shares in our hands, the Su Group is in your hands now. The speed at which these old foxes flipped was faster than turning a page. Yesterday, they were helping Su Jianguo brainstorm strategies. Today, they were scrambling to join the new master. I flipped open the documents in front of me, scanning everyone seated at the table. From today onward, this place will no longer be called the Su Group. It is renamed Dynasty Tech. All direct relatives of the Su family must leave the company within the hour. As soon as I finished speaking, a commotion broke out. In the corner of the room, Su Yue burst in, his face flushed, with rage, clearly unable to accept this reality.
Chen.
Anne, on what grounds are you kicking me out? This company belongs to my family. You're nothing but a lucky bastard. Didn't you hear what I just said? Clear the scene. Security quickly stepped forward, grabbing Su Yue like a scrawny chicken and dragging him out. His curses echoed down the hallway, but not a single shareholder dared to speak up for him. I turned my head to look at Su Qingying, who was sitting at the end of the table. She looked down, her hands tightly intertwined. Miss Su, for the sake of our past, I'll leave you one house. Take your father and move there. At least you won't be wandering the streets. Su Qingying slowly raised her head, her eyes as hollow as a wooden puppet's. She stood up and walked out of the room without a word. I knew that her last shred of pride had been thoroughly crushed by me today. Standing on the terrace, I took in the entire night view of the Huangpu River. The collapse of the Su family caused quite a stir in maddest financial circles. But I knew this was just a stepping stone for my business empire. The real challenge was only just beginning.
Brother Chen,
You handled the Su family matter very cleanly. However, that chip manufacturing plot you've been eyeing lately might not be so easy to get your hands on. Did you hear something, Brother Li? Mr. Li pointed to a corner not far away. A woman was sitting there, her gaze as sharp as a sword just drawn from its scabbard.
that's Shen Ruoxi.
The head of the Shen family in the capital, and the dominant force in artificial intelligence AI for the next 10 years. The Shen family has their sights on that project too. Shen Ruoxi is known as the red-haired witch. Her methods are more ruthless than you can imagine. A little ruthlessness is good. It's no fun if the opponent is too weak. As if sensing my gaze, Shen Ruoxi turned and raised her glass toward me. Her smile held a mix of scrutiny and provocation. In my past life, the Shen family didn't enter the Madu market until 3 years later. I didn't expect that because of my rebirth. The butterfly effect would cause this powerful rival to appear early. Shen Ruoxi, in my past life when you were ruling the business world, I was still just a driver for Su Qingying. In this life, I want to see who the real hunter actually is. I responded with a polite smile, then turned and walked away. I needed to recalibrate my business plan. The Shen family's appearance was a variable, but for me it was an even greater opportunity. If I could swallow the Shen family's southern empire, Dynasty Capital would have no rivals left. After finishing the handover, I somehow ended up driving back to the slum where I used to live. The place was still gloomy and damp, the air filled with the smell of cheap cigarettes and garbage. I saw a familiar figure struggling to carry cardboard boxes. It was Su Qingying. Didn't expect this? Did you? In the end, I moved into the place where you used to live. Is this the revenge you wanted? She leaned against a stained wall, holding a cup of cheap instant noodles. The young lady who once wouldn't eat anywhere but high-end restaurants now had to haggle with a landlord over 100 yuan in rent. I never intended to seek revenge on you. I only took back what belonged to me. How you live your life has nothing to do with me. Chen An. If I hadn't accepted that check back then, if you hadn't been reborn, would you have loved me? Forever, hearing this question, I froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. This question had tormented me for a long time in my past life, but at this moment, it seemed so weak and hollow. There are no ifs, Miss Su. A person can't keep living in the past. I pulled a stack of cash from my pocket and placed it on the box next to her. This wasn't pity. It was a clean break. This is the last time I'll help you.
Don, let me see you again after this.
I turned and strode toward the luxury car parked at the end of the alley. Behind me came Su Qingying's muffled sobs, echoing through the narrow alleyway. I started the engine and drove toward the brightly lit city center, without looking back, outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. The dark clouds over Madu hung very low. Shen Ruoxi sat across from me. She wasn't wearing her standard black suit. Instead, Shez wearing a deep purple Cheongsam. She looks elegant and gentle, but the sharp, aggressive look in her eyes hasn't faded one bit. I looked down, fiddling with the tea set, pouring boiling water into the pot. Ia's white steam rises. President Chen, I heard that for the sake of that chip project. You crushed the Su family under your heel. President Shen, you certainly are well informed. It was just a standard business transaction. Hardly what I'd call crushing them. I pour a cup of tea and slide it toward her. In my past life, Shen Ruoxi was notorious for being ruthless in the business world. She was a master at exploiting information gaps to back her opponents into a corner. Unfortunately for her, the man she's facing today possesses 10 years of future knowledge. The Shen family must have that project. Name your price and withdraw from the bidding. President Shen, do you really think him short on cash? She freezes, for a moment clearly not expecting such a blunt rejection. She's done her homework on me. According to her files, I'm likely still that poor kid who'd sell his dignity for a $10 million check. What she doesn't realize is that the current me has an appetite far greater than she can imagine. Chen and business is a long game. Offending the Shen family won't do your Wangchao capital any favors. President Shen, I have a bit of a bad habit. The more someone tells me not to touch something, the more I want to try it. The atmosphere between us instantly drops to sub-zero. Shen Ruoxi doesn't touch the tea. She stands up, her high heels clicking sharply against the floor. She pauses at the door and glances back at me. I hope your backbone is strong enough to last until next week's auction.
The door shuts.
I set down my teacup, looking at the rolling dark clouds outside the window. The Shen family's interference was indeed troublesome. But according to the list in my head next week, Shen Ruoxi would fall into a capital chain crisis due to a failed overseas merger. This was the source of my confidence. The hospital corridor was eerily quiet, the air thick with the smell of disinfectant. I pushed the door open and saw Su Jiangguo lying on the hospital bed, with an oxygen tube in his nose. We hadn't seen each other for just half a month, but he had lost a massive amount of weight, and his hair had turned completely white. Su Qingying sat by the bed, head bowed, peeling an apple.
What are you doing here? To watch us make fools of ourselves.
I'm not that free. I came to tell Chairman Su something. Su Jiangguo slowly opened his eyes, his cloudy gaze focusing on me. He moved his lips, his voice so hoarse it was almost inaudible. I walked up to the bed, looking at the man who had once thrown a check in my face.
You won.
The Su Group is gone.
What more do you want?
I want the Su Group to hand over the deed to the old factory district in Shenzhen. In exchange, I'll pay all your medical bills and arrange a decent job for Su Qingying. The apple in Su Qingying's hand dropped to the floor and rolled to my feet. She looked at me, her eyes full of humiliation and anger. But more than that, it was a sense of powerlessness. She knew the Su family didn't even have the right to refuse anymore. Chen An, do you really have to buy out the last shred of our dignity? Dignity is earned by yourself, not given by others. Chairman Su.
Sign it.
Su Jiangguo's hand trembled. As he signed the document, I put the documents away, without giving them another glance. Beneath that old factory land, a future subway line would be planned by the government, turning it into a key commercial district. In my past life, the Su family failed to see its value and sold it to the Zhao family. In this life, this fat piece of meat belonged to me. Report to the HR department at Dynasty Capital tomorrow.
You'll be my personal assistant.
This is your last chance. I walked out of the hospital room. Su Qingying didn't chase after me. I knew she would come, because she had no other choice. Su Qingying, wearing a dark gray business suit, stood in front of my desk. She looked very stiff, her hands tightly gripping a file folder. I continued flipping through the bidding documents in my hand. Assistant Su, make 10 copies of this document. At 3 p.m., come with me to meet Shen Ruoxi. The Shen family's influence in the capital is massive. Do you really want to clash head-on with her? I put my pen down and looked up at her. The arrogance in her eyes hadn't completely faded, but it was mostly replaced by a compromise with reality. You just need to execute orders, not ask questions. At the bidding site that afternoon, the atmosphere was unusually tense. Shen Ruoxi led her team and sat on the left, everyone looking determined to win. I sat on the right, with only Su Qingying behind me. When the host announced the start of the bidding, Shen Ruoxi offered an extremely high price. President Chen, are you still going to match this price? I want, but I suggest President Shen answer her secretary's phone call first. Shen Ruoxi frowned. Her secretary rushed in and whispered a few words in her ear. Shen Ruoxi's face instantly turned pale. I remembered it very clearly. Just 10 minutes ago, the Shen family's merger in Europe was urgently suspended due to regulatory violations. Our capital chain is broken. Did you do this? I just knew the outcome in advance. President Shen, since the Shen family can't fork over the money right now, I'll gladly take this project without holding back. I raised my paddle and called out a price slightly lower than the Shen family's. The entire room was in an uproar. Shen Ruoxi glared at me, her eyes looking like she wanted to eat me alive. Su Qingying stood behind me, completely stunned. It was probably her first time seeing business warfare being so ruthless and precise. After the bidding ended, I stepped out of the elevator and found Shen Ruoxi leaning against my car door. She looked a bit miserable. Her usually neat hair was slightly messy, and she held an unlit cigarette in her hand. Chen An, who exactly are you? A kid in his early 20s. Couldn't possibly have this kind of foresight and tactics. Who I am isn't important. What's important is that President Shen now needs a sum of capital to fill the hole in Europe. She jerked her head up to look at me, her eyes full of caution. Her most secretive crisis had been casually exposed by me. I walked up to her, took the cigarette from her hand, and casually tossed it into the trash can. The Shen family's roots in the capital run deep. I don't want a life or death struggle with you. I want control over all of the Shen family's AI labs in the south. In exchange, I'll inject 5 billion yuan to help you tide over this crisis. You're taking advantage of my misfortune.
That's right.
But President Shen should be clear, other than me. No one else would dare throw money at you right now. Shen Ruoxi stayed silent for a long time. She was a smart person, knowing which was more important, between pride and survival. She looked at me, a flash of complex emotion crossing her eyes. There was hatred, but more than that, inexplicable awe. Deal. But I have one condition. I want shares in Dynasty Capital.
Fine.
But you'll only get dividends. You won't participate in decision-making. I pulled the car door open, signaling Su Qingying to get in. Su Qingying looked at Shen Ruoxi, then back at me, her eyes filled with shock. She used to think Shen Ruoxi was some invincible myth. But in front of me, this myth had crumbled in less than an hour. The Bund at night was unrealistically beautiful. I sat at the desk. With Su Qingying opposite me, she worked desperately hard today, even taking the initiative to work overtime to help me organize the documents for the Shen family's labs.
Right now,
She was looking more and more like a qualified assistant, rather than the spoiled young miss she used to be.
Chen An, thank you.
For my dad's medical bills. And for letting me see all this today. No need to thank me. This is compensation for your labor. Su Qingying, in this world weakness is a sin. She didn't say anything, just quietly looked at the river's surface. I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking that if she had been a little nicer to me 3 years ago, would the current outcome be different? But I knew very well. There are no what-ifs. The Shen family's labs were now in my hands, which meant I had secured the ticket to enter the artificial intelligence sector. The prevailing wind of the next 5 years was already firmly in my grasp. I ordered a bottle of red wine and gazed at the lights of the Oriental Pearl Tower on the other side. The Zhao family had collapsed. The Su family was subdued and the Shen family became a partner. What happened in this half-month was more spectacular than the entire 10 years of my past life. Will you continue to target the Su family in the future? The Su family is no longer worthy of my attention. My goal is the vast sea of stars. I raised my glass and downed it in one gulp. Su Qingying looked at me, her eyes holding some unprecedented emotions. But I no longer cared. I stood up and adjusted my suit, ready to welcome tomorrow. The dynasty that belonged to me had only just laid its foundation. In the laboratory, hundreds of servers were humming with a low roar. This place originally belonged to the Shen family, but now it bore the label of Dynasty Capital. I watched the data dancing on the screens, knowing full well that these lines of code were the gold mine of the next 10 years.
Su Qingying
Walked over holding a stack of reports.
Her movements were much more agile than before, though a hint of confusion still occasionally flashed in her eyes. President Chen, Chief Scientist, Dr. Lin wants to see you. Hes, very dissatisfied with your drastic cuts to traditional research funding. Tell him to come in. A moment later, a gray-haired old man aggressively pushed the door open and barged in. Chen An, do you know anything about scientific research? Pouring all the funding into neural networks is a dead end. Doctor?
Lin.
There are no dead ends here with me, only the fastest path. I casually wrote on the whiteboard a few core formulas. This was a deep learning algorithm that in my past life wouldn't be published until 3 years later. Doctor? Lin's flushed face instantly froze. He stared at the whiteboard, his breathing starting to grow heavy. How is this possible? This logic. How did you come up with it? I'm a businessman? I only look at results. Do as I say, within 3 months. I want to see a prototype. Doctor? Lin looked at me like I was a monster. In the end, he didn't say a word and left with the formulas. Su Qingying stood to the side, her eyes looking at me, full of awe. She probably thought I was omniscient, but I knew this was just the halo of someone who knew the future. Having handled the AI matter, I immediately shifted my focus to new energy vehicles. In my past life, this industry had created countless trillion-dollar legends. Today, I came to get the most important permit, the lithium mining license. In a hall packed with big shots, Shen Ruoxi was also there. She had regained her usual elite demeanor and was chatting with a few foreign businessmen. President Chen, you haven't even finished with AI and you already want to jump into batteries. Be careful not to choke on such a big appetite. How would I know without trying? President Shen, by the way, Has the hole in Europe been patched up yet? Shen Ruox's face stiffened for a moment before she acted as if nothing happened and raised her wine glass. She was now my partner and also my most dangerous rival. We maintained a delicate balance. Next, I would like to announce that the enterprise winning the priority mining rights for the Northwest Lithium Mine is Dynasty Capital. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Countless eyes shone on me like spotlights. The wine in Shen Ruox's glass sloshed. She looked at me in disbelief. She had clearly allied with 3 major players to block me, never expecting that I had already signed directly with the local government in industry support agreement. When did you go to the Northwest? My people have been tracking your schedule every day. President Shen, tracking my car is useless. You have to track my mind. I led Su Qingying and strode onto the stage.
Su Qingying
Followed closely behind. Today, she wore a sharp suit, helping me block the reporters who were trying to swarm us. I looked down at the stage, eat those calculating faces, with only one thought in my mind. This foundation was solidly laid. Having secured the lithium mine, I returned to Yunqing to handle one last personal matter. The Su family's old villa had been sealed off.
Su Jiangguo
Was banned from leaving the country due to suspected economic crimes. He could only stay in the villa's annex. I pushed the door open, and a musty smell hit my nose. Su Jiangguo sat in a wheelchair, his eyes empty, looking out the window. You came after all. Did you want to see if I was dead yet? I came to take back the old things. I gave Qingying. I pointed at the rusty iron box in the corner. Inside it were all the gifts I had bought for Su Qingying. Over 3 years of tightening my belt in my past life. Though they weren't worth much, they were proof of my past foolishness. Su Qingying stood at the door, looking at the box with red-rimmed eyes. Chen An, I've always kept those things. I didn't throw them away. Keeping them is meaningless now. President Su, I've paid off the money you owe the bank. Su Jiangguo snapped his head to look at me. A glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes, but it quickly faded. He knew I wasn't doing this out of kindness, but to completely sever all ties with the Su family. From now on, you and the Su group have nothing to do with each other. Qingying will stay in Shanghai to work. Every month, it'll pay her enough salary to support you. I picked up the heavy iron box and walked out of the courtyard without looking back. Su Qingying chased me to the door, wanting to say something, but ultimately stopped. I threw the box into a trash can by the road, watching it get taken away by the garbage truck. In that moment, I felt some shackle within my body, completely shattered. At 3 a.m., I was still sitting in my office. In front of me were several smear campaign articles that had been urgently blocked. Although Zhao Hui was in prison, the remnants of the Zhao family
weren't completely dead yet.
They had teamed up with some people who were jealous of Dynasty Capital, deliberately spreading rumors that my funding sources were shady. President Chen, the legal department, has sent out lawyers' letters, but the public opinion is still brewing. Some are spreading rumors that you're illegally raising funds, illegal fundraising. They think this low-level trick can touch me. I lit a cigarette, looking at the quiet streets outside the window. In my past life, I had my reputation ruined by these kinds of rumors, even losing my job. But right now, what I held in my hands was absolute power. Send all our tax receipts and audit reports to the authorities. Also, contact Brother Li and ask him to prepare a joint statement for tomorrow. Yes, it'll do it right away. Chen An, you should rest a bit. You haven't slept for 2 days. I looked at her worried expression, and a strange feeling suddenly welled up in my heart. But I quickly suppressed it. The current me didn't need care. I only needed loyalty.
Once you're done,
go get some rest. Tomorrow, as soon as the market opens, I want those rumor mongers to lose everything. Tonight, the financial circle of Shanghai was destined for a sleepless night. I stared at the price charts, like a hunter stalking its prey. Those people hiding in the dark, taking cheap shots, had no idea what kind of opponent they were facing. I didn't just see the present. I could see their every future move. The storm of public opinion had settled. The tabloids that spread the rumors shut down one after another. Dynasty Capital's market value not only didn't drop, but thanks to Brother Li's endorsement, it actually surged by 30%. I stood on the rooftop, with the prosperity of all of Shanghai behind me. Shen Ruoxi walked over in her high heels, holding a new cooperation contract in her hand. Chen An, you really don't seem like someone in his early 20s. Sometimes I feel like there's a 1,000-year-old monster inside your body. Is President Shen praising me or insulting me? She walked up beside me, and we both looked out over the river. The Shen family's labs in the south have been completely merged into Dynasty technology. Our first-generation AI chips are about to enter mass production. This signaled my official transformation from a speculative businessman into a true industry tycoon. Someone in Beijing has their eyes on you. The Shen family can protect you for a while, but not for a lifetime. You need to carefully plan your way out. I don't need a way out. Every step I take forward is a path to survival. Su Qingying walked over with a coat and gently draped it over my shoulders. She has grown accustomed to this role now, quiet, submissive, and stripped of her former arrogance as a wealthy heiress. I gaze at the distant lights, knowing full well that the real battle of wits has only just begun. The capital. In my past life, I didn't even have the right to set foot there. But in this life, make sure everyone there remembers my name. I turned and strode into the office. Shen Ruoxi and Su Qingying followed closely behind me on either side. In this moment, I felt a kind of unprecedented sense of power. I'm no longer that poor kid who had a $10 million check thrown in his face all those years ago. Outside the plane window, clouds drifted 10,000 meters below. The wings sliced through the air as we headed straight for the capital. I leaned back in the spacious leather seat, flipping through a map of the capital's power players, provided by Shen Ruoxi. Su Qingying sat in the next seat, meticulously, reviewing the itinerary for after we land. Her level of professionalism now is more than enough for this position. President Chen, the pickup has been arranged. However, the eldest young master of the Ye family in Beijing has sent word. He mentioned tonight's charity gala and hopes you can attend on time. The Yi family. Is that the same Yi family? That claims to control half of the capital's electronics industry. In my past life, the Yi family would collapse 2 years from now due to a massive capital chain rupture. But for now, they are still a high and mighty giant. For the eldest Ye master to invite me at such a sensitive time, it's clear he wants to put an outsider like me in my place. Miss Shen warned us that the Ye family plays dirty. Should we decline?
Why would I decline?
They've already set the stage. If I don't show up, how can the play go on? The plane touched down safely at the capital airport. I stepped out of the cabin, and the dry, cold air hit my face. This isn't the mild Yun city, nor the bustling magic city. This is the heart of power. I adjusted my suit collar and strode toward that black Hongji limousine. In my past life, I was in this city. He is nothing more than a delivery boy. In this life, it'll make the city look up to me. The car drove smoothly into the city center, watching the red walls and green tiles blur past the window. I felt an unusual sense of calm. Whether it's the Yi family or the high society elite, to someone with 10 years of future memories, they're nothing more than remnants of an old era. The entrance to the club was packed with supercars. A server in a Cheongzam led me inside. As I entered the hall, the chatter suddenly died down. Countless, scrutinizing eyes fell upon me. The eldest Ye master, Ye Feng, stood at the center of the crowd, swirling a glass of wine. His gaze held an arrogance that was bred into his bones. Oh, so this is the famous President Chen, and who's been making waves in Magic City. You don't look like you have 3 heads and 6 arms to me. A wave of laughter erupted around us. Su Qingying stood behind me, her body stiffening slightly, but she quickly adjusted her breathing and stood her ground calmly. I ignored Ye Feng's provocation and walked straight to a nearby sofa to sit down. Master Yi, monsters have 3 heads and 6 arms. I'm just an ordinary man who likes making money. Money isn't that easy to come by in the capital. I heard you want a piece of the electronic chip market. Take my advice and go back to where you came from, before you lose so much that you're left without even your underwear. He slammed his wine glass down on the table in front of me. Wine splashed everywhere. I've dealt with this kind of petty insult plenty of times in my past life. I leisurely pulled out a handkerchief to wipe my hands, then looked him straight in the eye. Master Yi, instead of worrying about my underwear, you'd be better off worrying about that shipment of raw materials seized in Southeast Asia. If I recall correctly, that's the Ye family's lifeline for the year. Yi Feng's expression shifted instantly. That matter was under a strict lockdown by the Yi family. There is no way an outsider could know. He stared at me, terror flickering in his eyes for the first time. The party was interesting, but I'm not a fan.
Of master. Yes, wine.
Under everyone's watchful eyes, I walked out with my head held high. Su Qingying followed quickly behind, her gaze filled with utter disbelief. She's probably wondering just how many trump cards I have left to play. Back at the hotel, I immediately issued my first order. I know exactly where the Yi family's Achilles heel is. In my past life, the Yi family's downfall began with an internal leak. And the man who leaked those secrets is currently being beaten by Yi Feng's men over gambling debts. Go to the underground casino on the south side of the city and find a man named Lao Wu. Bring him here. Whatever he owes, I'll pay double to help him. Su Qingying, standing beside me quickly, took down the notes. By now, Shez, used to my unconventional decision-making. She no longer asks why. She just focuses on executing the task flawlessly. An hour later, Lao Wu was brought before me. President Chen, save me. Yi Feng is going to kill me. He won't be able to touch you. Give me the actual accounting data for Yi Electronics, and I'll get you out of the country. Lao Wu hesitated for less than 3 seconds before nodding in agreement. When it's a matter of life and death, loyalty isn't worth a cent. Once I had the data, I didn't rush to go public. Instead, I called Shen Ruoxi directly. You move fast. The Yi family just started their move, and you've already got them by the throat. President Shen, get your capital ready. When the market opens tomorrow, we are going to swallow the Yi family's core assets whole. I hung up and walked over to the window. The capital's night view is beautiful, but it's also full of killing intent. I know that. After tomorrow, the Yi family will be history, and the name Dynasty Capital will shake the entire city. Go get some rest.
We'll need a lot of energy for the harvest tomorrow.
Su Qingying nodded. She looked at my back. Her eyes filled with an indescribable sense of admiration. I knew then that she was now completely devoted to following me. The stock market had only been open for half an hour when the 3 listed companies under the Yi family all hit their limit down simultaneously. The financial big shots who were previously observing were now unable to sit still. They stared at the screens, watching the red numbers dance frantically. Terror was written all over their faces. What's happening? Is someone shorting the Yi family? Who would have the guts to do that? I sat in the VIP room of the exchange, several computers set up in front of me. Shen Ruoxi sat beside me, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she executed orders. Every move stepped right on the Yi family's pain points. E is precise as a surgical operation.
Chen and Anne, this data you provided is incredible.
The Yi family's capital chain is broken. They're completely beyond saving now. It's just the interest. Yesterday, Ye Feng told me I wasn't worthy of making money. I have to show him exactly how money disappears. Just then, Ye Feng kicked open the VIP room door frantically. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie was crooked, and there wasn't a trace of last night's arrogance left. He lunged forward, trying to grab my collar, only to be pinned to the floor by my bodyguards. Chen An,
You lunatic.
you're digging your own grave. The financial world won't let you get away with this. Master Yi, the financial world only follows the strong. As for you, you no longer have any value to them. I gave a signal for the guards to throw him out. Su Qingying stood to the side, watching the once mighty Ye Feng being dragged away like a dead dog. She let out a soft sigh. The scene reminded her of the Su family's past. Stop reminiscing. Notify the finance department to begin the takeover of the Ye family's core assets. I walked out of the exchange, the sunlight a bit blinding. I knew the Ye family's fall was only the beginning. I've stirred up the murky waters of the capital now. 7 days after the Yi family's collapse, the Beijing branch of Dynasty Capital was officially established. At the opening ceremony, the big shots who once looked down on me were now all smiles. They lined up to hand me their business cards. Profit is the only true passport in this circle. President Chen is truly young and talented. We hope you'll look after us here in the capital. It's nothing. Let's all get rich together. I played along with their fake pleasantries, but my heart remained unmoved. Su Qingying, dressed in a sharp black gown, moved gracefully among the guests, helping me handle all the trivial social interactions. She has completely adapted to this high-intensity lifestyle. Congratulations, President Chen. Everyone in the capital now knows that you, Chenan, are the one with the Midas touch. President Shen made quite a bit as well. If it weren't for your capital backing me, I couldn't have swallowed the Yi family so quickly. Shen Ruoxi smiled, her eyes holding a deeper meaning than before. We aren't just partners now. We're in the same boat. I looked at the noisy crowd below the stage and suddenly remembered the day I was reborn. That $10 million check. It seems so ridiculous now.
Su Jiangguo, do you see this?
Back then, you wanted to use money to buy my future. In the end, I bought out the expectations of the entire capital. The ceremony ended, and I stood on the top floor terrace, overlooking the brilliant lights of the city. I knew my business map had finally begun to take shape, but this is only the foundation. In the future, I will build a global business empire that belongs to Chen An. President Chen, the flight back to Magic City tomorrow morning is booked. Good. For our next stop, we're going to claim the final piece of the puzzle that belongs to me. I turned and walked toward my desk. The setting sun cast a glow on my back, stretching into a long shadow. In this life, I will surely be king. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window, the Huangpu River flowed relentlessly. Since returning from the capital, I haven't rested. I dove straight into planning our global market layout. Su Qingying stood behind me, skillfully organizing cross-border merger and acquisition files. In her eyes now, the spoiled heiress act was gone, replaced by a composure forged through storms. President Chen, the tech giants in North America are getting restless. They've sent a joint letter, wanting to buy out our core AI algorithms. Buy us out. They're just afraid of being left in the dust. Tell them that Dynasty Technology doesn't sell its tech. We only sell products. I leaned back in my leather chair, staring at the world map on the wall. In my past life, these giants used technical blockades to exploit us for 10 long years. In this life, it'll show them what a real opponent looks like. There is one more thing. My father was discharged from the hospital yesterday. He wants to personally cook a meal for you before he goes back to the countryside. That won't be necessary, Miss Sue. I've told you before, between us, it's strictly business. Help him buy a house in Yun City for his retirement. Deduct the cost from my personal account. Su Qingying's movements stiffened. She lowered her head, her voice slightly choked. I know she hasn't given up yet, but the door to my heart was locked tight the day I was reborn. Get back to work. This afternoon's meeting with Shen Ruoxi is very important. Don't let any mistakes happen. She took a deep breath,
Wiped her eyes.
and returned to her professional state. I watched her walk away, my mind perfectly clear. In this life, I am no longer anyone's sidekick. I'm the one moving the pieces in this grand game. After working late, I took a walk alone by the river. The night breeze was cold, blowing away most of my lingering intoxication. Su Qingying jogged up behind me and handed
Me a windbreaker.
She looked at me, her eyes hiding emotions shed suppressed for so long, looking as if she might break down at any moment. Chen An, what if I hadn't taken that check back then? If you were still that poor boy, would you, even just a little bit, still love me like you did before? I stopped walking and turned to look at her. The riverside lights cast a pale glow on her face, making her look fragile. In my past life, I asked myself this question countless times. Now, in this life, it's her turn to ask.
Su Qingying.
The cheapest thing in this world is late-coming affection. I know I was wrong. I truly regret it. For the past 6 months, I've watched you climb to the top step by step, and I realized that I lost the most precious treasure in the world. You only regret it, because the current me is standing at the summit. If you were looking, eat the same. Chen An, who stood in the rain to bring you an umbrella.
You'd only find him annoying.
I didn't take the windbreaker, letting it slide to the ground. I stared at the rushing river water, feeling an unprecedented sense of liberation in my heart. Miss Sue, the work I've given you is recognition for your hard work over this period. If you want to talk about feelings, you can submit your resignation tomorrow. Su Qingying slumped onto a bench, covering her face. She sobbed uncontrollably. I didn't look back, striding toward the car parked by the road. In this moment, I have completely severed ties with the Simp Chen An of the past. On the eve of the global press conference, Shen Ruoxi unexpectedly brought a team of lawyers to my office. She held an agreement in her hand, her eyes radiating an unprecedented seriousness. I knew this woman was finally showing her fangs. Chen An, the Shen family wants to increase our investment. We want to take 40% of the shares in Dynasty Technology. President Shen, are you trying to turn the tables on me? Shen Ruoxi walked up to me, leaning both hands on my desk with an overbearing aura. The Beijing Shen family behind her clearly wasn't satisfied with just being a partner. They wanted to control this future artificial intelligence empire. This is the wish of the Shen family patriarch. If you don't agree, all of the Shen family's labs and supply chains in the south will cease operations tomorrow. President Shen, do you really think ID let you buy in? Without leaving myself a way out, I opened my laptop and pulled up a hidden structural diagram. Shen Ruoxi stared at the screen, her face turning from pale to grim. She realized that all the core algorithm keys were actually distributed across servers in the basement of that old factory I had bought earlier. President Shen, if the Shen family wants to withdraw, be my guest. But without me, those labs of yours are nothing but piles of scrap metal. Shen Ruoxi stared at me for a long time, before she suddenly burst out laughing a self-deprecating laugh. She put the agreement away and gracefully smoothed her hair. Chen An, you really are a lunatic. It seems ill just have to behave and remain your partner. A wise choice. I look forward to our continued cooperation, President Shen. Watching her leave, I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. That was one hell of a gamble. But I won. Because not only do I know the future trends, but I also understand human greed perfectly. The spotlights converged on the center of the stage. Below the stage sat global political and business elites. Su Qingying stood in the wings, nervously clenching her fists. I adjusted my tie and slowly walked up to the podium amidst thunderous applause. Today, we will define the future. As I pressed the remote, the first general artificial intelligence system from Dynasty Technology officially launched. At that moment, the entire hall fell into a pin-drop silence, followed by roaring cheers. I knew that, from this second on, the name Chen An would go down in history.
My God.
This is technology ahead of its time, by 20 years. I looked at the fanatical faces below the stage, yet my heart didn't waver much. In my past life when I died in that dark alley, nobody knew who I was. But now, the whole world has to listen to my voice. Mr. Chen, we did it. This is just the beginning. Assistant Su, notify the legal department to prepare the draft for global industry standards. Shen Ruoxi walked over and gave me a generous hug. She whispered in my ear, saying the Shen family had submitted I pushed open the main doors of the hall. Outside was a sky full of stars and flashing camera lights. At this moment, I finally stood at the very top. Not for love, not for dignity, just for this breathtaking view of the world at my feet. I declined all interviews and went up to the rooftop alone. The strong wind messed up my hair, but it made me feel an unprecedented sense of clarity. I finally understand the greatest meaning of rebirth. It's not about revenge, but giving myself the power to choose my own destiny. A year later, I returned to Yuncheng. Everything here remained unchanged, except that the Su and Zhao families had long become nothing more than after-dinner gossip. For the locals, wearing a black trench coat and holding a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, I stood before a nameless tombstone. That was where I was buried after I died in my past life. In this life, I've lived enough for you, and I've avenged you. You can finally rest in peace. I set the flowers down. Turning around, I saw Su Qingying standing not far away. She had resigned and was now working as a primary school teacher in Yuncheng. She looked much more at peace. In her eyes, there was no longer the greed and arrogance from back then. Mr. Chen, long time no see. Long time no see, Teacher Su. We greeted each other like ordinary friends, then walked past one another. No lingering attachments, no melodramatic drama, only the calm relief of waking from a dream.
Shen,
Ruoxi called, telling me that Dynasty Capital's market value had surpassed the $1 trillion mark. Big Boss Chen, where are you heading next? To a place where nobody knows me? To get a really good night's sleep. I hung up and turned off my phone. Sunlight scattered across the sparkling sea. I pulled out the yellowed $10 million check from my pocket. This was a memento I had always kept. I gently tore it to pieces, letting the scraps scatter in the wind and fall into the ocean waves. Forget love, forget dignity. I've lived a spectacular life this time around. I walked toward. The sports car parked by the road started the engine and disappeared at the end of the road. The legend of Chen An continues.